Hey everyone, George here and welcome back to the channel. So if you have been following my channel for the last couple of years, you're very familiar with this particular tank right here. It is called the Cliffs. Now, the reason why I want to bring this up today is because several months ago I had talked about completely dismantling this tank and starting over with something new. Many of you in the comments when I said that or suggested that did not want that to happen. You wanted to see me basically renew this tank by just doing some subtle changes to it that brought new life to it, and I've done just that. So when we come back, we're going to talk about those subtle changes and what I was able to do to make this tank exciting and new again. Hang in there with me, and we'll be right back. Hey everyone, George here and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about this specific tank, and we're going to talk about some of the new features that I've added to this tank that have rejuvenated it and brought it back to life. I'm really excited about this because it has become one of the most popular tanks in my gallery, and for good reason, because there was a time that I was going to take this tank completely down and start over again, and many of you urged me not to do that, that you liked it so much that you thought that just a few changes here and there would make this tank absolutely beautiful again. And I have made those changes, so stick with me. We're going to talk about that. We'll be right back. I wanted to show you a perfect example of how just a few changes can revitalize a tank and give it all a completely new look and new life. Now, one of the things that you might notice about this tank, if you've been watching my channel for the last couple of years, is this tank really has gone through some transformations just in the last few months of going from having no wood in it whatsoever to having this centerpiece of wood that I added to this just a few weeks ago. And basically the only thing that I really did here to this wood was add a little bit of moss to it and give it a look of being in the water for a while, a seasoned look. Now, the other changes that you may notice is a lot of these little plants down in this area here. This is the Anubias Petite Nana. This is the Monte Carlo in these areas down here. Also, you will see some Bucephalandra in here as well, down tucked into these rock areas all along here. You will also notice that the Java ferns have just really taken off, and I really attribute that to adding the Siamese algae eaters and a few more autocinclus to the tank to keep control of the algae that may be going on. Sometimes we get this brown algae that just happens in our tanks over time. Now, this can happen for various reasons. It can happen because you're not doing enough water changes, or it can happen because you have made changes to the population of the tank. In other words, you've added more fish than the tank really can sustain. There's so many different factors that can contribute to these kinds of changes that are negative to your tank. So we're going to take a little bit of a different view of this tank from another angle and show some more changes that were made here, because I'm really excited about this tank. This has now become one of my very favorites. It's a beautiful tank. It has depth, as you can see here. This is what we're always trying to achieve when we're putting a tank together, is this wonderful sense of depth and dimensional change that takes place when we put things in just the right spots. Now I may add a few more rocks down in this front area here as well, but they will be very small little pebbles that will help anchor some of these plants in, because guys like this, who are very beneficial to your tank, can also be extremely disruptive when they go around, and that is a bristlenose albino pleco, when they go around and uproot plants. Now they don't do this intentionally, but obviously they do it because they are scavenging for food, and they're really being very aggressive about it. So let's take another view of this tank from a different angle, and we'll talk a little bit more about the changes to this tank. So from this angle here, you can see where we've added some new plants along this side over here. These are crypts that I added, and they were placed in different parts of the tank along with this side over here. In fact, there's more added over in here than there is on this side here. Now the reason for that was to fill in and give those mid-level plants an opportunity to, again, add some depth perception to this tank, and to give it that really nice look of dimension that really qualifies this tank to be beautiful, because of the way it looks from your angle of viewing it, and that is from the front of the tank or the side of the tank. Now, as you can see, the thing that you always want to have happen with your substrate is to short line it in the very front of your tank to have maybe 3 inches, and go all the way back to about 6 inches in the back here, and that gives us that angle upwards, which in every situation with a well-made, well put together tank, you are going to see that adds that ability to give it that perception of depth. And I really love the choice of stock in this tank as well. As you can see, the main focus of this tank is this apistogramma right here, who is not a hung sloy. That people confuse this fish often. This is a McMaster. They call it a redneck. I'm not sure exactly why the nickname for that is, but he is just such a cool fish. He's been in here since the beginning, and I was a little worried about him at first because they are not very aggressive eaters, and when you put them in with tetras of any kind, they can be competing for food rather aggressively, and they're a little bit shy. Apistogrammas can be shy. They can also be extremely, I wouldn't say extremely, that's probably the wrong word for it, but they can be a little bit aggressive and territorial. But when it comes to getting food, they're just not real fast fish. So you have to make sure that you get the right combinations of food in the tank that are going to give this beautiful little apistogramma here an opportunity to get his share of food and help him to thrive in a tank that is not overly aggressive at all. If you look at the calmness of this tank, you'll see that there's a little something for everyone in here, from your beautiful apistogrammas to your even the bristlenose pleco that is so brightly colored because he's so happy in here. A lot of times bristlenose plecos will go in a tank and they'll be washed out looking, and they'll not be very healthy because there's really not enough food for them to feed off. This is a well-seasoned tank. In other words, even though it has had some changes made to it visually, this tank is a couple years old, so the requirements for that bristlenose pleco to thrive in here are to have a certain amount of food that is available to it, which are different types of algae that grow on specifically wood and rock, and there's just enough in this tank to really make that exactly perfect. Now, I love the balance of this tank because of the height of the plants in the back. We're going to take another angle here at this, and we're going to talk about angles and what really helps a tank like this look so perfect if you get those angles exactly right. So when we take another look at this here, what we want to do is lay out our plants in the way that they're going to grow and to give them an opportunity to show off each plant in its own right. So in other words, these low-lying plants in the front here are never going to have anything growing in front of them, so they're always going to be shown in that way. Same thing with our mid-level plants here. There's nothing going to grow in the front that's going to outgrow them in this mid-level range, and the same thing in the back. Now, in the back, you can do so much more because you've got your taller plants that are there and thriving. These wonderful swords back here, and also the crypts, the bronze looking crypts here in the center, along with the piece of wood, the taller rocks, and the pieces of Anubias that are the larger Nana, not the petite Nana, but the larger Nana back in here, that gives us an opportunity to stick those in just the right places, and also using pieces of moss stuck between the rocks back here that give it that just absolutely perfect seasoned look. And I can't really say enough about how proud I am of this tank, because it has become, I would say, one of the most beautiful tanks in my gallery, because I have taken the time to rejuvenate this tank by not giving up on it. Now, a lot of times people will get tired of a tank after a year or so, and they'll just completely tear it apart and redo the tank. I didn't see a need for that. I saw an opportunity here to rejuvenate this tank by just adding some things to it, adding some new plants to it, taking out some of the old plants, and restocking the tank with a good balance of fish that get along really well and do not compete directly with each other for food to the point where anyone struggles to get their fair share of food. There's a little bit of something in here for everyone. Now, I don't want to make this video a long one. I do want to thank you for joining me today on a tour of this particular tank, because I think it's a perfect example of how we can say out with the old, in with the new, but not really have to spend a lot of money on rejuvenating a tank and making it exactly what you want it to be. Now, I'm going to let you enjoy this tank with a little bit of music at the end here and a couple of different angles, so enjoy it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you will hit that like button, the subscribe button, and leave your comments down below. Tell me what you like about this tank, and tell me what you think I have done right, or if I've done something wrong with this tank. Please let me know that as well, because just like you, I'm learning every single day about what is right and what is wrong, and we never ever stop learning. Also, share this video with your friends. This channel is growing, and I so appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. So many of you have shared my channel with other people in recent weeks and months, and it's kind of interesting how a channel can go for a year or more before it finally gets its footing and starts to take off, and that's exactly where we're at here with this particular tank. And I want to thank you so much for being a group of people who watch this channel, who are constantly giving me ideas or telling me what I'm doing right, or even being aggressive enough to tell me politely what I'm doing wrong. So anyways, thank you again for joining me, and right now I'm going to allow you to enjoy this tank just visually, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you so much again.